we live?
Yes. Hello, everyone. As people are joining in, we'll give 1 or 2 minutes, but preemptive. Hello. Thank you so much for joining on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. I guess I should say good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Maybe it's 2 in the morning where you are. It's actually, that's kind of interesting. Would love to see in the chat where people are calling in from. If you want to drop your location, we get people from all over the world in here, so it's cool to see where folks are calling in from. Um, yeah, Austin, London, perfect example. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida, as you can tell from behind me. The Milton storm didn't hurt my area too bad, so I came out on top, luckily. But yeah, thank you so much for throwing these in the chat. Christina, Houston, my parents are right down there, so that's familiar. Nice to see Texas represented in here. Neil, Evan, thanks so much for joining up. We'll give 1 more minute for people to join in, and then we'll get started here. Evan, that's funny. 2 a.m. Wow. Impressive for you to be on an SEO, CRO, site speed teardown at 2 a.m. That's dedication. All right, cool. Well, no time like the present. Thank you everyone for coming in. Thank you for using the chat. Love to see where people are calling in from. We'll start with a couple of quick introductions. I'm joined by my good friends, Ben and Carlos. And my name's Jack. I'm the Chief Brand Officer at Nostra. I've been involved in the e-commerce world for a lot of years, I guess, too many to count on my two hands, but really love doing these webinars, mostly because, Ben and Carlos and I will be able to give some real time feedback on how your websites look, some potential ideas for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, some teardowns, and some valuable tidbits of information that hopefully you can go back and implement directly after the call. So yeah, in thinking through that, also please drop your URLs in the chat on top of where you're calling in from, because one thing that we love to do is to actually go in and provide feedback. So if you're just joining, please put your URL in the chat and we'll take a look at the site during the call. Thank you, Neil. Kudos for being the first one. Let's see how many follow. But I'm so happy to be here, and thank you, Ben and Carlos, for having me. I'll give the floor to you guys for a quick introduction. Maybe Ben, if you want to start.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Ben LeBay, CEO of Spiro. Spiro is a CRO experimentation agency and consultancy. We kind of run high velocity testing programs. We do things on the B2B SaaS side, but we are the core of our work and our origins are e-commerce. I actually cut my teeth on CRO working with Moise Ali and Native Deodorant, and worked with Moise for like 3 years on that, and before he got acquired by Procter and Gamble. And we work with a bunch of Shopify, a bunch of e-commerce, direct to consumer. Carlos can fill in some dots there too. He's kind of our main lead on that work now. But we've got clients like Dr. Squatch and BarkBox and things like that we're working on, doing a lot of D2C, also retail work. If you're in Europe, you might know Decathlon. So a lot of retail work as well. But that's us. Carlos, you?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm also joining on the Spiro side. I've been in the e-commerce space for over 10 years now, and I currently specialize in all things D2C e-commerce. So basically connecting the dots between all these research and experimentation principles applied to to e-commerce. So most of the work I do, excuse me, is on the e-commerce side of things, mostly on with Shopify merchants. So yeah, happy to enrich the discussion today and hopefully provide some actionable tips for those who are joining us.
Hey,
That's
Jack, I got to give a plug to Carlos. He just recently published a CRO for e-commerce growth course. And so sorry about this to be like plug this in,
no,
though, but like he put this up on CXL and really he's not going to promote himself so much. So I'm going to promote it for him. Yeah.
damn, kudos, Carlos. Well, I'm glad you paused because I'm going to take the course, and learn
Nice.
some things for my D2C brand. Um, well, that's fantastic. God, I appreciate you saying that. Maybe we'll have Chris, if you can track it down, throw the link to his course in the chat. So people.
Nash says he just completed it. I'm not sure if it's
Oh,
a
no
here.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Great
That's
course, just
fantastic.
completed. Nice.
And I didn't realize you were so close with Moise. I mean, if anyone on here is going to grab some time with someone, grab it with Ben under the having shepherded native to Procter
Well,
and Gamble
actually, we still
position.
work with Moise, and Carlos works with them right now, like week on week. So
That's
As we speak,
fantastic.
basically.
Yeah, he's a great guy, old friend of mine. But yeah, I we'll be excited to get into it. I have a tiny little slideshow. There's really not much on it, but it will just shepherd us into being able to look at some sites here. Let me just click through, make sure everyone can see my screen okay.
yep.
Um, okay. Sorry, looks like frozen here. One second, excuse me. Sorry about that. Let me try that again.
A live show.
Um, wow, my Google Chrome just quit. So,
I got you.
you mind just sharing it?
Yeah, man.
It's just 2 slides. Sorry, chat.
Does that
Yeah, I
work?
got it.
You're looking at the title slide there.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, live Shopify teardowns. We already did the intros, so no need to look at our ugly mugs any longer. Um, yeah, and then the agenda just for today is to do these CRO tips, and the chat is already filled with URLs. So we'll just skip to the next slide, and you guys can give your top 6 tips, and we'll run through them, and then we'll pass it off to Ben and Carlos to hop in and go through a bunch of these brands. And I won't beat the kind of dead horse too hard here, but put your URLs in if you're just joining, if you're just getting with us now and you want to have your website looked at, continue to throw the URLs in. Thanks, Ben, for that save.
Yeah. So this is where we look at these top tips and Carlos, like check these out, like 1 through 6 there. These kind of got pre-filled. These are really common ones here. I think I might even just add on top of these, like these are real common ones. I kind of want to point to ones that I can think of that are underappreciated or under talked about because like visual navigation or just like maybe you might call that product discovery is an interesting, benefits below the add to cart, that high area of real estate or really important area of real estate right below the add to cart button, free shipping generally. I did a webinar yesterday all about kind of shipping and shipping intent, tech stack audit, UX design, what's the story and the flow. To me, like top tips from experts looking at your sites, this is what I'm going to be thinking mostly, some of this stuff here, of course, but also around customer intent. I think I'm a big frameworks guy. So I think I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy. Those 4 categories that came from a long ago kind of Google optimization kind of manual, but it's a framework that stuck with me. And for e-commerce, if you're selling a supplement, it's I want to know, I want to find that information, but it's not I want to do, it's not I want to go, right? So you can those 4 buckets, like some apply, some don't. But if you're selling mattresses or couches, you actually have all 4 buckets. I want to, I want to do, I want to sit in that couch. I want to go to a store, perhaps like a store locator might be part of your e-commerce journey. I want to buy, of course, is there. And what is the fourth one? I forget, but you can see where I'm going there. I think that the top
Mhm.
tips from my standpoint is like thinking about intent and those four intent buckets. Yeah, Carlos, anything to add on top of this before we jump in and tear down some sites?
Yeah, I mean, getting like taking kind of a step back more philosophically, I would say a common misconception about CRO, and by the way, CRO stands for conversion rate optimization, is that there's a lot of like usability principles that are framed as CRO, but we try to actively make the differentiation because those are things that you should be pretty much take for granted. Like you should aim for your site to be usable, friendly, and obviously to tick pretty much all the boxes that we have in here. Normally, when we start, like when we know that we have pretty much tick all those boxes, is when we start kind of like customizing the experience for the specific audience. So it's interesting to make that differentiation so that we know that we are not kind of like confusing what would be like pretty much UX standards and principles and good practices with CRO meant as a discipline to learn more about your users and then tackle business problems through experimentation, basically. So obviously, like when we talk about CRO, a lot of people think of CRO as just running A/B tests on their sites. The top level advice here is that before you get to that point, you should make sure that these list of items that we're seeing right now are tackled first. That's where like A/B testing and some other like more advanced suggestions would come into place, which obviously we will deep dive with in a second. All this being said, we probably want to focus on that aspect, like things that we believe should be improved to tailor the experience to, and obviously we will make some assumptions here, to your audience, because these are things that should be tackled regardless of if you're doing CRO or hiring a CRO agency or anything.
Sweet. Jack, I'm gonna stop sharing this. And then we can pick one of the sites. And I don't know if you want me to drive from the beginning there or no,
Yeah,
or
whatever you and Carlos see in the chat that you want to hop in and tear down, we'll do that. And then after a couple, maybe I'll talk about a little bit of site speed and optimizations through the lens of Nostra. But yeah, all yours. All yours. And yeah,
sweet.
Carlos, great point. The low-hanging fruit. You got to tackle that before you get too in depth.
I
Site
just
speed
I had
being
a couple.
probably the top item on that
Yeah.
list.
I had clicked on a couple while I was looking at them come in on chat. Can you see my screen here? We're looking at Pilot Mall.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I've also got another one open that I had clicked on as well. So Pilot Mall, I'm not sure who you are there in the chat, but I just clicked on this randomly and now I can't see the chat. So, but yeah, so bringing this up here, it looks kind of like a retailer for, aimed towards pilots. So pilotmall.com. This is interesting. You've got kind of I don't often see kind of the brand name as .com here in the hero image. Next gen sound silencer with AirSet and Bluetooth. So this is kind of product focused, but you are a retailer here, but you got kind of a priority item here on the homepage. Probably not the landing page for most of the traffic, but I like the focus on I liked the focus on one kind of priority product. Maybe you've got really good margins there on that one, or that's kind of your flagship product that you've got going on here. Now shipping is kind of weird. I would say this is a bad CTA, frankly, because it's not a call to action. It's just a piece of information. So maybe it's not a CTA, but if I click on it, I go there. So it does act like a traditional CTA, but I didn't know what it was happening. So find out more, buy now. These are they're calling me to do an action where now shipping is not necessary. So not quite a normal CTA there. I might fix that. Customer favorites, I really like this. This is also kind of this kind of hero mustache here is a good place to put categories as well. I often see that a lot of categories down here. We've got like best sellers, new products. Are very product focused here and not category focused, but maybe you don't have well, you've got a lot of categories, so you could try down here. Now we're on desktop. Carlos, maybe I'll pivot over to you to focus on mobile, which probably should be the focus and our priority here, but I just happened to throw this up. Stream of conscious coming down here. You've got a lot of add to carts. That definitely is an interesting strategy for return users that are known. That might be the way to go, but you might want to get people to explore stuff a little bit before adding to the cart. That from again, maybe your homepage is likely not the priority to focus on. So let's maybe stay on the PDP here. Um, Carlos, before we go over to mobile, anything that you've seen so far that calls your attention? I'm leaving the pop up here for now too, is like
Hmm.
low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I mean, this might sound contradictory because for those who know us already, we make a lot of jokes about like not wasting your time like testing the colors of buttons or minor things that would usually not move the needle.
I know where you're
But in
going.
this case, I see some redundancy between like the brand's primary color and the CTAs and pretty much everything being like kind of like a similar shade of blue. So I would pay more attention to that so that it creates a better like visual hierarchy in terms of like, for example, letting the user know where should they click when in this case obviously should be in add to cart. So in this case, more of like again like a visual hierarchy problem slash opportunity. So it's something I would take into consideration. Now, if you keep scrolling, um, there's other thing I would call out after the reviews, which is yeah, right there. So with the top sellers and recently viewed, we have tested these several times, and we shouldn't always take for granted that these modules of recommended products are necessarily good. It's something we always suggest challenging because obviously, uh, especially if you have like different product categories and SKUs, the recently viewed can get quite distracting for the user. So I have seen cases where this works well, some others when it doesn't. It's just something that would be probably ideal to challenge and again like test. And one other thing I would call out, and this gets me back to some of like our perspectives or approaches to CRO, is that not everything is about just getting more people to convert. Like again, some people claim CRO is kind of victim of its own naming because it sounds too explicit, like conversion rate optimization sounds like so explicit that a lot of people just see it like as a way to get more people to buy. But there are really like when we use this kind of like methodologies, there are many ways how you can still influence business growth beyond conversions. So you could still get like keep your conversion rate flat, but get people to spend more to increase the average order value, and that will still positively influence the bottom line. Similarly with sites, and I would like to know if anyone can let us know if any of the sites you shared is a subscription-based model, or you have the option to subscribe for product replenishment, because we would love to review that. Because that's another way how you can influence business growth beyond just conversions to get people to buy more actively, more repeatedly. So where I'm going with this is that the impact of these kind of initiatives and interventions doesn't always come from the conversion rate as a metric, as a criteria. Coming back to pilot mall, obviously I would suggest, can you please add the product to the cart, Ben?
Yeah, I was gonna before I do that, I'm curious on what happens there. Just to piggyback on what you said, like, and also to tie it back to maybe Moise Ali. And I've recorded a video testimonial with him talking about this, so I don't mind giving this away. one of the biggest tests over 3 years working on that site was had to do with what happens after you press this button, add to cart. In that case, what we're dealing with was a product over here that was related to some other kind of products, which might, in this case, in Pilot Mall, be related to here, these things, these other books. And effectively, what we did was not cross sell, but which is kind of is going on here, but rather upsell, which is going from a single to maybe a bundle, let's say. And so, but we did it on the action of add to cart. And so it wasn't necessarily, I just pressed the button. Okay. Oh, nice. Okay. So we're doing something similar here. All right. Well, you've got two things going on. You got the slide in, but you also got the pop up. So maybe that's kind of weird and it's a lot at once on desktop here. I'm curious on what this looks like on mobile. But yeah, so this is, don't forget your favorites, but you also could think about an upsell rather than a cross sell. So do a bundle. Like, hey, you got this one, why not these two as well? Do a, 3 book bundle for this discounted kind of thing. I'll stop there, Carlos, because maybe I stole your thunder on
No,
this.
that's where I was heading
Oh yeah.
to. Like
Sorry.
how do you strategically get people to spend more, obviously in a good way, in an ethical way? Like we're not into any kind of like dark patterns or anything unethical. So how do you make a better experience for your customers to find like related products more easily and so on and so forth? Um, so
I
yeah,
do
with
like,
that, another like one last kind of like addition or comment on Pilot Mall, if we can go back to one category page, is that obviously with sites like this where you have multiple brands, multiple SKUs, I will assume hundreds, maybe thousands. Obviously, not all the products have the same weight in terms of margins and profitability. Inevitably, some SKUs will be more profitable than others, and you want to be strategic about that. Um, Something that's pretty common these days for like multi-brand retailers is to like promote their own brands more aggressively because like margins there are quite higher. And again, obviously this is too quick of an exercise to tell what the experience is like here, but it's something I will suggest always like keeping in mind, like how do you make sure you're promoting and highlighting your more profitable SKUs, or maybe not, it's not only about profitability, but maybe returns rates. Like if you have a product that sells too well, but the returns rates are crazy, like you might not want to make that your like first product in terms of like promotions and banners and stuff. So it's something I would also suggest taking into consideration. And I'm happy to take over for the next side, Ben, as I have it ready here in my browser.
okay, yeah, I don't know if we've talked about one real quick thing too, just because shipping is on my mind here. You've got like same day shipping right here, or order by 3 p.m. I really like this kind of thing. I think you could I've actually done testing around like order by this time to get it shipped today. And that's worked really well. Free shipping on 100 plus. And then you've got kind of this like promotional ladder kind of thing going on with like 50 to 75, you're getting different benefits and such. And that's kind of interesting. I would definitely play, this would be a rich testing area to do different ways of displaying this type of information. You're only $20 away from getting a free koozie, whatever that might be. So that's a rich area for testing. But yeah, I'll shut up now about this one. And Carlos, let me stop sharing and you can take over.
Perfect. I'll do right now. And I think for the sake of this exercise, we want
Yeah,
to
I should have done that. Or like,
yeah, to
yeah.
stick to more of like the mobile viewports of some of the sites, as it's likely that most of the users are going to be mobile visitors. So for Heston Culinary, there's something I don't think I could replicate anymore. But as soon as I landed on the site, I saw some kind of welcome pop up with an offer, which is obviously pretty common on most Shopify sites. Something we have successfully tested many times is to delay that pop-up, because for first-time visitors, if you show them this like 5 seconds after they land, it can be so out of context, really. They are not really sold on the idea of buying from you yet necessarily. So
Oh,
yeah,
wait,
like
wait, wait. Before you close it, I guess you
okay.
closed it out before, but I'm curious on the tabbed approach. Maybe you can talk about like tabbing your offers. It's a little bit of an old tactic, but I don't see it done enough. Where it goes into a little tab where you can access it later on.
So
Oh,
actually, I didn't do anything for a while, which is not a common user behavior, but now I have another like pop-up on top of the original pop-ups. It's really meta. So yeah, probably I would suggest paying a little more attention to that. Now, if I close it, let's see what happens. Yeah, I don't see any tab.
goes away. Yeah.
Goes away.
What I was referring to is a lot of times those little offers, and you have different types of offers, like even like free shipping over a threshold or like free shipping coupon or Black Friday coupon or like intro welcome. You might have many at the same time. When you close out one, it just sends over a tab. It still works on mobile. Imagine just kind of a vertical orange little strip that says see offers. It's available all the time. So that they peruse, they go onto product pages, listing pages, they navigate around. And then when they're ready, they open that thing back up, they grab that coupon and they go for it. We've tested doing that really often. It's a tactic that got real popular about a year and a half ago, and it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's still working pretty well. There's these types of tactics kind of, there's a law of shitty click-throughs. Eventually, it stops working, but yeah.
Thank you, Ben. There's something else I would call out here. I know this might sound kind of polemic, but I have tested this countless times, and every time we have removed an auto loading carousel, it performs better. Like carousels are nice for business owners, operators, merchants, but they are not really useful for users in the vast majority of cases. Obviously, there could be some exceptions, like with everything, but generally speaking, like the fact that you need to swipe through this to get the different offers is not something that's useful enough for users. And you can think about it as users yourself, and you'll notice that. And actually, if you are doing any kind of like heat map analysis or session recording analysis, you will probably see that most of the people are just clicking or tapping on the first slide because everything else is just like way behind. So something I have done quite a few times, and I would strongly suggest doing here for Heston, is to split these into, I think there are four offerings. Yeah, I think these are like four banners. I would make them visible all at once, like maybe one after the other in some kind of grid. I can almost assure you that click-through rate will increase because you will ensure people will be exposed to the right offerings. If that sounds like too much, maybe you can just do one, two, or three. But a suggestion is to always like stick to like clear offerings that in most of the cases shouldn't be like rotating or moving. I like this blade though with like the static messaging. It helps me understand the offering better, and it's something we also commonly suggest. Now, if we get to the product page, it kind of gets too much. Like at this point, I know this is going on. I know there are 5 days left. There's probably no need to remind me of that during all my product visits because it takes quite a decent chunk of real estate. So that's not ideal. Something else I can see here is that there are so many product images here, which can feel daunting under some context. And something else that both Ben and myself and our teammates have successfully tested several times in the past is that when your product pages and descriptions are too long, like it is the case here, it is a good idea to introduce some kind of like sticky CTA or something that's persistent that the people can keep clicking through, because otherwise, like in this case, for example, I pass through the add to cart, there's a lot going on, and I can continue for a while. And now in my brain, I don't know what to do next. Like, of course, if we see it from a logical standpoint, I should scroll back and add to cart. But unfortunately, that's not how users really behave. So I would suggest doing some kind of treatment to either let me add the product to the cart, or if you have a lot of options on your product selections, you can just add something that anchors the user back to the product selector here.
I would add, Carlos, on that is like I've had really good success on having that sticky add to cart CTA only be on up scroll. So as you're scrolling down, it disappears. So you have the full viewport. And that's when you're exploring, that's when you're reading, and that's when you appreciate like a lot of the product imagery, especially when your product page is your landing page. You need it to feel like there's a lot of education going on. And so as you're scrolling down, it's not there. But as soon as you go back up, it pops back up. It provides a little bit of movement, which will attract the eye and maybe break up like a banner blindness effect, because sometimes a sticky CTA there can be some banner blindness going on there. People just it just doesn't move, and so people think it's part of of just not the web page, and so they kind of ignore it. So I see that sort of behavior sometimes too. People don't understand where that CTA is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, I just added the product to the cart. I can see like quite a few like cross sells here that I might also like. I see I unlock free shipping, and I think generally speaking, this is nice. Something that we have done successfully in the past many times is to, in the PDP, I saw this product was discounted and I would save more than $800. So that's something that's worth highlighting on the card drawer. Like if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
let me
yeah.
know that I'm saving more than $800, that's a really nice nudge to get me to start my checkout process. One other tactical note before we kind of wrap up and make room for at least one more review is that most of the merchants pay more focus to the product descriptions and imagery and FAQs and a lot of information, because sometimes the product requires it. But something I would suggest, or in other words, probably better words, I have successfully tested in the past, like very successfully, is to just prioritize the reviews. Like try to move the reviews just closer to the top and let people read by themselves in the voice of customer, the experiences of previous purchasers, and in more than one time, it has worked. It has worked beautifully because people get a better perception of why this is different, and they will still be able to go over the rest of the products, but in like changing this order of things can work pretty well sometimes. Ben, do you have the next site ready for the
Yeah, I've
tear?
got this one that mentioned their subscription, but before we go there, Jack, any on your side, like to tear down this side or the one that I went
Yeah.
to Pilot Mall and
Yeah, no, beautiful. Well, let me take 5 minutes max, and then I'll give the rest of the time for you guys before we hit the 45 mark to tear down some more sites. But I'll give Nostra a little bit of a shout out here, who's helping sponsor the webinar. But and thank you guys, by the way. That I took some good tips and tricks just for myself. I'm picturing my little auto grid carousel
killed it.
sliding through, and hoping that on mobile, maybe I'll go back and put like my grid system in now. So thank you for that, Carlos. That was smart. Yeah, I mean, my real, like, I'm a site speed guy. I think that, CRO and A/B testing and everything is so important. But one thing that I see helping people a lot is when the website is 50% faster, especially for mobile, it can get people to add things to cart quicker and check out more regularly. So, um, So again, I won't take up too much time, but my big soapbox kind of moment in site speed over the past year at least has been, and Ben, I was looking because you mentioned it in the chat, is, I think if we were in a live forum and I asked everyone on the call to raise their hands, a show of hands, if you work with an in-house dev, a dev agency, some type of freelance developer, etc., I think the majority of people would raise their hand, or at least have some understanding of the dev landscape as it relates to getting rid of old liquid code on old apps that you've gotten rid of, like rebuy. Someone mentioned that in the chat, Evan. Yeah, like rebuy, I see as, not to call them out or anything, but just historically being an app that people implement, and I can immediately see aspects of their core web vitals drop. And these are like bulky weighted apps, right? And let alone if they see that happening and they remove rebuy and they notice that the drop is continuing, they wonder why. A lot of people don't know about, or it can get a little bit complicated on the how to get rid of liquid code, how to compress images, how to rework JavaScript, how to do all these things with CSS, etc. So anyway, my big soapbox here is that there is a whole nother side of site speed. It's the other half of the same coin that goes really unnoticed, I think, in today's Shopify industry. I think more and more is becoming noticed, but I think in 5 years it will be essentially table stakes, and that's looking at the speed through the infrastructure lens, right? So you have the client lens. What can we do code wise? What can we get rid of? What can we enhance to boost our core web vitals, to boost our page speed insight performance score, our lighthouse score, etc. And then there are things that you can do at an infrastructure level, genuinely looking at how servers are interacting with Shopify. So just to pop in and show a quick little example of what I typically see in the Shopify realm. I'll come in and I'll take a look at the two sites we just went through, and then I'll run through at light speed a couple of them. But when I go to Pilot Mall, right, and I'm trying to get an understanding of how my browser is connecting with a Shopify server, and I'm making an assumption that everyone on here is Shopify. This is kind of true with, WooCommerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud. It's all over the place. Is that there is one number that typically sticks out to me, and it's how long it takes for the browser, my computer, the visitor, we'll make it really simple. Oh yeah, caveat, this is the technical boring part of the webinar, so I'll try to make it more easily understandable. But what this is telling me is that it took 1.19 seconds in just dead time waiting for a server to respond. That's looking at it a little more intensely, like this is diving in a little bit deeper. But what this is telling me is that it took almost 1100 milliseconds, actually more than 1100 milliseconds, just for me sitting here in Florida to make a request and for Shopify to decide how the website is going to be displayed to the visitor. So, so 1.3 seconds, we'll just click around a little bit. I would imagine to get a little bit faster, 250 milliseconds, 234 milliseconds. So what's happening here, right, is the bulk of e-commerce brands are filled with dynamic content, right? Like on a website, you have both static and dynamic. Think of it as like, if we go to a Wikipedia page or your blog, that's just text. It's essentially just static. That can be cached all over on servers, and it's very easy to manage static content. by the nature of having these pop-ups and review apps and rebuys and like Yahoo marketing scripts running in the back and your chat bot widgets and your review apps, as I may have just mentioned 2 seconds ago, and these countdowns and everything, the majority of people in e-commerce are beholden to accessing this dynamic content. So what happens a lot of the time is, like when I come in and I analyze e-commerce brands, you can see that it takes a lot of time for the server to decide how this dynamic content can be displayed to visitors. So all of that to say, I have a feeling this one actually might get much faster. Let's shop skillets. I know we have some Heston fans in the chat, which was cool. I saw someone shouted him out. So Heston, drop the code, the discount code for the webinar in the chat, and we might sell some au gratin pans today. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's taking essentially between 500 and 800 milliseconds to just wait for servers. Nothing's happening. I think that the sweet spot is like sub 100 milliseconds. And the one really like simple way to do that, because right now Shopify is just using its root servers. In the US, there's like maybe 5 of them. So I have to communicate with a server in Iowa to fetch the dynamic content. You know, we work with Forever 21, and this is just an example of caching the dynamic content that e-commerce sites are so wrought with on like 370 servers all around the world will make it so that it only takes 60 milliseconds to wait for a server instead of 600 milliseconds to wait for a server. So anyway, all that to say, I think that this is a widely overlooked, really competitive advantage in the e-commerce world. Not that many people know about it right now. And if you can, I mean, I'm talking 10, 11x reduce your latency of server connectivity, that will make your website as a whole load in faster, because what will happen is the server connects quicker, and then, you know, your first piece of content followed by your largest, et cetera, will load in quicker. And then food for thought on this, I'll actually say, like, everyone I ever talked to is between a 40 and a 15. I'll say, like, actually this number is just lab data of bot, like it's essentially just a lab generated score of how bots are assessing the dynamic content on your page. It's you know, it's not like this score has nothing to do with people with credit cards who are actually purchasing things. So people come to me all the time and they say my site's really slow, and they show me this. Maybe not. You know, all it tells me is that the bots are having trouble crawling the page. What really tells me whether or not a site is slow is, you know, going in and understanding what's happening here in the in how the dynamic content's being accessed. So you can see again 1600 for High Notes Coffee. This is a brand that we'd love to talk to. But if you want to see this number higher, I will just say, last thing, food for thought. You can dynamically render this content as static HTML only for a bot when you're on the edge, so that for like a company like Jolie, right, when we dynamically rendered their content, you can see all the areas for improvement here. They went from a 27 on mobile to 75. So eliminates the blocking time, eliminates a lot of the bot's idea of what's weighing a website down. So anyway, I'll pause there. I don't know if we have 1 or 2 minutes to maybe do one teardown. I know we're close to time here, but I did want to just mention that food for thought, there's an area where you can really take like 10 minutes worth of work and improve the infrastructure on your site speed relatively simply. Like non-technical founders can do it in a week. I don't know. What do you think, Carlos?
Beautiful.
One more quick
No, I
one?
think like it's we usually overlook, but it makes such a big difference to make sure that you have a site that performs as expected pretty much before anything else.
Yes, that's the truth. Okay. Well, I'll be cognizant of everyone's time. I know we put 45 on for the webinar. So what I'll do is I'll say I know we only got to a couple of sites today. If you're interested, I saw some people putting in some calendar links. If you want to meet with Ben, geez, after that, I kind of want to meet with Ben just to hear some of the old stories about Native. But
Oh yeah. Yeah,
if
yeah.
you want to meet with Ben and Carlos, grab some time. If you want to meet with me, grab some time as well. And that was a wonderful session. Thank you guys so much for coming and letting me be a part of it, Ben and Carlos. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. I'd love to come back anytime. Like it's pretty easy to roll through and play bad cop. So that's fun. Yeah.
Thank you, Jack, and the team at Nostra.
Great. Well, thank you to everyone who is in the audience here. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of the day. Who was it? My friend um, in Manila who's up at 2 a.m. Now you can finally get some rest. Okay. Now it's 2:45 and you can go to sleep. Okay. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of the day and we'll talk soon.